Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Battlefield podcast. Today our episode is about Christians united beyond politics. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Battlefield. It has been 8 years since our last, I know it's been a long time. We haven't done an episode in a long time. My name is Mark.
I'm Chris.
I'm Rick.
We have a guest with us today.
I'm Saron.
Let me just kind of remind everybody what the Battlefield is about. In a battlefield, it is chaotic and noisy and crazy and upside down. And when you're on the battlefield, it's not long before the focus becomes survival and completing the mission. And it doesn't matter who's there with you, what language they speak, what uniform they have on. It's all about getting through it together and surviving. So we on the battlefield believe that the best way to survive the battlefield of life is with a vital relationship with Christ Jesus. So today we're going to dive in the deep end, I guess, so to speak, and talk about Christians united beyond politics. So welcome. It's good to have you.
Hey, glad to be here.
And tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Saron Lacy. I am the pastor of Restorative Life Church. I'm an experienced educator in my day job. So I've taught. I'm currently an assistant principal. Live out here in Mesquite. Love God, love my family, love my wife. So better make sure I say that.
You gotta say that.
That's right.
You gotta say that.
Yeah. We've got to know Saron and his family over the last several years, and got to help in a couple of ways to be able to help the church plant and stuff, and just built a good friendship. And so we really appreciate you being on the podcast with us and stuff. So what questions? I know we have some prepared, but questions for Mr. Lacy so everybody can get to know you a little bit.
Okay, I'll start. As a man of faith, what it's like to be a man of faith and be an educator?
For me, it's not difficult.
Okay.
I can see how it's difficult for some people, because most school districts want their employees to kind of have a neutral position and to stay away from, hot button topics, religion and politics and things of that nature, unless it's associated with the curriculum. But for me, it's not that hard, because I think it's more than you should know what I believe because of the way I live.
Yes,
right?
That's excellent.
So it's easy for me to do that. And one of my kids, he's grown now, he ended up coming to my church, and he's like, man, I should have known that you believed and you're a pastor. I said, how should you have known? And he said, because how you treated us. You treated us fair. You always treated us in a particular way. And then I went to a conference and I saw John Maxwell, and he spoke about when he goes and teach Christian leadership in places where he can't talk about the Christianity part, he still teaches the principles, but he removes the name. And he says, I can preach Jesus without saying Jesus, because I preach what he says.
Yeah.
And that's the approach I take when I'm at school, is that I can still teach the principles, I can still say the things and do the things, and they should know by what I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an excellent answer, man. Live it. You're living it. That's good.
Yeah, I think that. Sorry.
I was just asking about the stroke out, or did the lights go down?
They did. Our
Okay.
one lights did. Do we want
I feel better.
stop and fix them, or do we want to?
It looks fine on there.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay.
I'll just have to edit this out.
Discussion on the lights. We'll have a side note.
Well, you kind of said it. You kind of knew it, but that's okay.
Well, here's one of the things I know, that whenever you have conversations, whenever you hear things that Satan doesn't want, that's when things just, start happening that don't make no sense. And so kind of be expected, because I think this is one of those areas where I think this topic overall that we're going to be looking at is one where I think a lot of people they're in bondage to ideologies, they're in bondage to political views, from whatever, and then they so lock in that we don't know how to be civil anymore. We don't know how to be kind. We don't have conversations anymore. And so yeah, I think this is a message that Satan doesn't want a lot of people to hear. But Mr. Lacy, what's it like planting a church in 2023? I guess is when you planted it, but it's 2025 now. So
Man, it's hard. Like when I did it, I was like, God, you sure? You know what I'm saying? It's like it's really difficult, but it's the most rewarding thing, probably one of the most rewarding things that I've done in my life. It's because when we started, we had some folks who said that they would start with us, and then once we kind of got out the gates, some of those people didn't show up. So it's very, very few of us, and you have doubt, you have that frustration, but I love it. I love small church because I think you see the impact up close and personal. You see breakthroughs up close and personal. You see growth. You see, the word changing people in small church. To me, much easier because you have that intimacy. I know my people, and so it's been really good. It's a struggle because the lack of resources, and that's been the faith walk for us, is to really trust in God, because if it's not, the money, or if it's not because everything in the church is $1,000. Like I don't care, I don't care what it is. Like your keyboard goes down, it's $1,000. Your camera go down, like it's expensive, and I don't think people see the business side.
Oh,
of
yes.
it. And then when you have a small church, the resources are so tight and so limited that it's like, okay, God, we need it, and so you really have to trust on faith. But it's been rewarding. It's amazing. We have a good group of people that we love people, and we believe in treating people right and loving them, the way God loves us, and honoring them and treating them, with dignity and honor and respect. So it's been a good experience.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the things that make your church like unique? Like, what are y'all kind of your denominational, doctrinal, or biblical positions that you feel like are kind of unique?
I would say we're non-denominational with a splash of Baptist. I grew up Baptist. I grew up, Church of God in Christ, and so there are some things that still resonate there because that's where I learned from. But as far as us, we're non-denominational, and we want you to come as you are. I don't want you to get fixed. I don't want you to try to present yourself in a certain way. I think when you come the way you are, and you come with a contrite heart, and you're listening to the Word of God, God will convict and help change you. And so one of the things that we say, aside from treat people right, is we have room for you. And what that means is, like, wherever you are in life, whatever space that you have, that there's a space here for you. The Bible says that, like, we're holy stones, and God uses each one of us to build the kingdom. And so that's important because that lets us know that God has a place for everybody. And our job as leaders, our job as believers, is to help people find where they fit.
Yeah, and sometimes the holy stones is misshapen, and sometimes they're a little ugly on one side, and sometimes, But God uses us.
God uses it. He finds a way.
Fits us in
he
there.
finds a way to fit us in.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I don't know. I'll take the lead on this next one, I guess. But it's, so when we look at things like politics, there's so many divisive things that center around politics, and within even the church, like it just seems like there's just this hard line that you're either this side or that side, and and you have people claiming to be, of course, Christian on both sides, and then you have all of these things, but we've become so tribal in our discussions around politics that a lot of the discussions aren't fruitful anymore, right? I don't think, like, we've got times where people just don't have a conversation. Immediately, as soon as you present something they don't 100% believe in, then they're out, And so there's so much division, even in the church, that's centered around that. And we have this tendency to, I think, attack other Christians if they're not in whatever our group, our party or our, and we have this idea that everyone that's quote unquote on our side has to believe, there has to be this uniformity of belief, or you're out, you're not even part of us anymore, right? And I think that's hurt because I think it's hurt the church, but it's definitely hurt us as a nation, as just a society. Like what we were talking about before, that I don't know if bipartisanship exists anymore. I'm not sure if we ever seen it, but but now the whole idea, when most politicians say bipartisan, what they mean is we're going to do it my way and you should join me, and that's bipartisan. Right? And so, but what kind of tends to happen is that, one, we know that there are Democrats, Christians who love Jesus, and they support the Democrat Party. And we have Republican Christians who love Jesus, but they support the Republican Party. But we tend to, in our disagreements, we tend to kind of build up straw man arguments. The thing about a straw man argument is it's not a real position anybody on that has the opposing view really has, but you build up this argument so that you know how to tear it down, right? And the straw man's easy to set on fire. And the thing is that just like we've talked about in a lot of other things, the moment we can start to demonize someone else, we can then dehumanize them, and then we can justify trying to destroy them. I mean, that's throughout history. We've seen that over and over and over. Once you can say someone is bad, now you justify unrighteous behavior towards them. And unfortunately, we've seen that happen in churches. We've seen in some of our churches where it's essentially a political rally for whatever side it's on. And so we don't often see peaceful conversations centered around politics anymore. And so what we want to do is, one, share, because I think we all have 4 different, really kind of political views. And because I find myself, when it's on political topics, I tend to upset everybody. So, because, and I'll just say this up front. I remember the last, not this last election, but the one before, there was somebody that, man, first thing, like we had people that visited the church, and the first thing was like, how much do you, and they were Trump supporters, so they're like, how much are you pro-Trump from the pulpit? And I was like, I'm not. I'll preach the Bible. I don't. And so they never came back
up there.
Yeah. And but had one guy ask me, he's going on this thing, and he goes, he was asking about Biden and Trump and all this, and I was like, oh man, well, I think Biden's an idiot. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, hold on, I didn't finish. I think Trump's an idiot too. And then he was like, you just watched him like go through a reboot phase, like, he just kind of powered down, like he didn't know how to respond. I was like, I don't really fully agree with either side, and so for that reason, I found that when you're kind of in the middle, say an independent or something, you kind of are hated by both sides, because you're not in either, because anything slightly left of the right, the far right considers extreme left. Anything that's slightly right of the extreme left, they think is far right, right? And so anyway, what we're going to try to do today is to just have a conversation where we as Christians can share our political views, and we're listening to understand. We just want to understand each other. We're not really listening to try to respond or rebuke or rebuttal or any of that type of stuff. We're just wanting to understand, and for it to demonstrate, one, we can have a peaceful conversation. We can honor Christ in these conversations. But two, for us to hopefully learn and grow as we get to know each other and realize that everybody has reasons why they support what they support and who they support. And so that's kind of it. So where y'all want to go from here?
I guess what we can talk about what political party we align with, and and why.
Okay.
I guess I'll go first. I'm more conservative in my way of thinking, my decision making, and my values. And now I consider myself more independent, but I have voted both sides, depending on, what the race is and what we value. And you have to realize with my wife was born in Mexico, and she came over here illegally, like crossed the border, the desert, all that stuff. But then she came through the process of becoming a citizen, and it took a long time. Even before we got together, she was in that process. She was a resident when we got together, and then that made the process a little bit easier. But I mean, we were 32, and she had started out when she was like a teenager. Yeah. So that process is so long. And so one of the things, I wasn't very political early on. So when she became a citizen, I was like, okay, I got to be on point because I want her to be able to vote. And this is going to be her first time to vote. And the first time she got to vote was for, I think it was 2016. It was for Trump. So we kind of weighed our position and we voted for Trump. Now, one of the main reasons I voted for Trump is because everybody else was a career politician. And I'm not really big on politics, but we did some research and realized that a lot of these people were already have been politicians, like some of them as long as I've been alive, and talking about what they're going to change, when in my mind it's like, if you've been a politician that long, you should just be able to fall back on what you've already done as a politician. Like, this is what I've done, this is what I've done. And Trump, now, just like you, I told my kids, now, this ain't somebody we want to be, this ain't somebody you want to necessarily be like. But as far as this debate, as far as this going on, it's something, he's bringing something different. And of course, I don't agree with everything he says, but in that sense, that's who I had to make sure that my wife, we did our research, we kind of we studied, and she just made sure she voted, and she had her own choice. But but before that, I voted for Obama. So it really depends on, I guess, the way I'm saying, the way I'm feeling, what's going on in my life. But my values are conservative. Sorry, I didn't mean to take up the whole thing.
No, you're good.
Yeah, so I just want to know a little bit about me. So
yeah. What about you, Mark? What's your?
So I don't really know that I fit into anything exactly. I wasn't raised in church. Fairly new to the Christian scene. And so I didn't never care about politics. It never crossed my mind. Didn't want anything to do with it. And then my story's on the Battlefield website if you want to look at it. But then when I became a Christian, I realized that there are some important things in politics, especially where they affect people of the country. So I sort of came at politics through the back door. I started as a Christian. I claimed the biblical worldview as my filter for life. And then I realized that politics is a little bit important. It's still not something I really follow or care about all that much. I do pray about it. But the most important views that I have, to me, I guess, are more conservative than anything else. I'm liberal in a lot of ways, conservative in many ways. And when I say conservative, I believe in conserving the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, and our Judeo-Christian foundation. Other than that, man, everything else, I go to the Bible first. And but all of the views, in my opinion, don't take anything away from the fact that whoever I'm talking with is a person created and designed by God who Jesus Christ died for. So it really pains my heart that we can't sit and talk anymore about things that we disagree about, because I don't know everything, and I want to. So, so that's kind of me. I have found myself voting Republican. and definitely not a Republican, but I do believe in the Republic. So I don't know if that answered your question, but there it is.
There it is. Yeah. What about you, Mr. Lacy?
Historically, growing up, we talk politics with, mom, dad at school. I've been Democrat mostly my life. As I grow older now, and I'll be clear when I say this, I think picking sides is a trap. I think that's the trap that we put ourselves in, because now that I'm a little bit older, a little bit more mature, I feel like when you pick sides, you don't necessarily look at each party to see which policy, what legislation really impacts me. So now as I move forward, I really look at, there's some things that I'm very conservative on, right? There's some things that I agree with a whole 100% that the Republicans talk about and that they are, but there are also some things that the Democrats that I agree with. And so when I look and I decide, I weigh those options. You talked about your wife. One of the reasons that I've been Democrat is because of my views on health care, where I feel like health care is a right. And so that's very important to me. My wife one time was having some heart issues and some chest pain, not heart issues, Lord, chest pains. And the doctor did a chest x-ray and she did scans and all this to make sure that there was nothing wrong with her heart. After we get through all those procedures, we fix what's going on. She goes to get insurance. It's preconditioned. Now everything related to her heart is a pre-existing condition.
Oh, man.
Right?
Yeah.
And so for me personally, we tie things to our own interest. The American Health Care Act got rid of that to where she could be insured. And so when I look at things like that, and I try to tie when you're voting, and it's not just looking at the broadband thing of what they proclaim, but it's really voting your interest, really understanding the ramifications of, if I put this person in power, what comes behind that, and can I live with it? And so for me, those social issues, things like healthcare, has been a driving force in my voting, because social health and social action type deals, that policies and procedures are very important to me. So I've been leaning more toward the Democratic side, but like I said, when you talk about Second Amendment rights, I'm very Republican. When you talk about freedom of religion, and religious freedoms, things of that nature, I side with them. The last administration where Trump had, he worked with Van Jones, and they had some prison reform work that they did, and a lot of people were blessed because of that. So it's things like that I think you just got to look at and negotiate, where you stand for yourself.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and I like, what you had said before about, again, that we haven't quite seen full bipartisanship and those things like that. So for me, I don't know what category I really put myself into, but kind of my political development, I guess, so I was raised in East Texas, so very Republican area, to say the least. But so kind of that was what we kind of grew up with. You're always, you're supposed to just support Republican, and kind of into my early adulthood, I kind of kept that, and I was just kind of voting straight tickets, and it was really when I started saying, wait a second, we talk about this stuff in church, but then we're sometimes supporting a party that's doing stuff that's opposite of that.
Yep.
And you guys have heard me say it before, but there's a quote. It's attributed to being a Native American proverb or something. I don't know if it's true or not, if it originates with that, but it said, when you realize that the right wing and the left wing are attached to the same bird, you start to understand our political system. And what kind of got me was after I had got to vote in a few elections, I started realizing, man, I don't think the country's getting better every time. I don't feel like, because you had a Democrat or because you had a Republican, that it's we're still spending tons of money. We're still doing this stuff. Life is still getting harder. Life is still getting more expensive. And I was like, are we really doing anything, right? And so then I started kind of shifting much more middle. So, you know, people talk about whether they vote red or blue, and I kind of vote purple. Like this last time I voted a split ticket. I tried to research the areas that were really important to me. And so there were some Democrats I voted for, some Republicans. I would categorize myself, I guess, as a conservative-leaning libertarian. Like, I think we have way too many laws for a lot of stuff. I think that there's some laws that you should just let the natural law take care of itself, meaning that things like, you know, if somebody's using drugs, as long as they're not hurting someone else, I don't know that you ought to try to punish the person they're hurting themselves already. But once they start hurting other people, or they start affecting other people, doing things intoxicated or under the influence that they shouldn't be doing, that's when that becomes breaking a law. But just, you know, things like that. There's some things we have laws for that we shouldn't have laws for, I think. I think that we ought to have as many, as few laws as possible, but as many as necessary. Like, right?
Yeah.
And so I think on both sides, sometimes we tend to just try to create more laws than we need. I mean, we can't follow 10. They couldn't follow 10 in the Old Testament. Adam and Eve couldn't follow 1, but yet we've got over 40,000 in the United States. So, but so that's kind of mine. That's kind of how I do it. So I kind of now, like I said, I'm kind of in the middle, saying a lot of times both candidates, whatever the main face of the party is, I generally don't fully agree with either side. You know, so yeah.
Okay. So we got everybody's view, huh?
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. Okay, so what are some of the positive, I love this question. What are some of the positive aspects of the other party that y'all see from?
Like I told y'all, man, like my Second Amendment is important to me. You know, it's going to, you know, the gun range is therapy. And
I like how you said that.
I like going into the woods, and I want to have what I want to have. Religious freedoms is also important to me as well. You know, to be able to express the love for what I believe in. I wouldn't want anybody to limit me, nor would I want to limit anybody, but I want the freedom to be able to express myself. As well. And like I told you, this last administration, the prison reform, which I had to educate myself on, is important to me as well. I'm like Rick in a lot of aspects when it comes to drugs. You have in our country a lot of men and women that are in jail for selling drugs, and then in certain places we've legalized it. Now it's legal to sell drugs, and I'm in jail for selling drugs.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So it's things like that that I think that are, you know, non-violent offenses that we can come and correct and really have an impact in changing people's lives. So I'm pretty well down with those, man.
Yeah.
I with the Democratic Party, I like that, I guess I can do it both. I like how it seems to be more for uniting people, because I remember I was talking at a GOP function, and I was like, you know, one of the things that y'all do really bad is that you paint it as a white, this is a white man party. You understand? When it's not necessarily a white man party, but the way it's presented is that it doesn't see a lot of inclusion. Versus the Democratic Party does seem like it's like Obama was the coolest laid down person. You know, he just made you want to be behind him. You know what I mean? And I really, really like that. It seems more inclusive, and a lot of people are looking for that. You know, that's why we looking for Jesus, right? He includes us all. You know, and it just seems like the Democratic Party does that really good. And it seems like they're for the little man a lot more than the Republican Party. Like we're for the people more versus even though some of them, you know, drive Ferraris and, you know, don't get it twisted. They all have money. They all got money. It just seems like they're just more inclusive, more welcome. Yeah. They're more willing to open that door. It seems like and kind of put that foregoing versus the Republican Party. So I really like those aspects.
Yeah. What about you, Mark?
I don't know. For the Democrats, I really like how they are for the individual person, and how they, however they want to express themselves, whoever they want to worship, I think that's great, because we are not all the same. So I really appreciate how they pull for the common person, no matter who they are. The Republicans, I think, I think that I like the way they pull for the country, it seems sometimes. I'm trying not to say what I don't like.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
We're trying to talk about what.
You're that's it.
Yeah,
I prepped myself. I prepped myself.
Because it's so easy for us to go like what we disagree with.
It's easy. It's so easy to go negative.
I think we've been actually not programmed to
but we've been conditioned to do that because that's what and that's the other thing that switched me was that when you actually sit down and listen to both sides, what you find is a lot of times they're saying the same thing through different perspectives. And we're going to completely disagree with anybody else. But and that's what got me was like there's some crazy conspiracy theorists on both sides. There's some crazy both sides believes the other side is in control of the country. Both sides believe that the other side is control of media. Like, it is so easy to go negative.
Yeah.
So, sorry I interrupted.
That's kind of where I am. Again, my filter is the biblical worldview and my walk with Christ. So there's not a lot either side that I see.
And that's hard too.
It is
because we, they put out that we're a Christian country. That is something that they sell us on, but there's a lot of them that don't do Christian things.
Exactly.
Yes. And so it's like for me as a believer, when I'm looking through that lens and I'm trying to decipher, which way I lean and why I believe and do this and that and the third, or what I'm going to vote or who I'm going to support or what. When I look at through that lens, it's very difficult. For me, it's
so difficult.
Especially when you have people on both sides, and it's like you're really picking poison. Which one is going to have the less impact, negative impact on me? Because I don't feel like even on both sides, I don't feel like all of them are for the people. I think the Democrats, they have opportunities to do stuff, but they don't, and they talk a good game, but the execution is not there. But how do I pick which one? Sometimes it gets frustrating. So it's pretty cool, man, to have this conversation and see the different perspectives and stuff like that.
I feel like people go there. I don't even know if this is truth, but they start out in the political arena with all these ideas and these wonderful things and things they want to accomplish to help the country. And then I feel like they go there and something happens to them, like something gets to them and they change.
Yeah,
and
it's
they
called
become
money.
a part of the
I was about to say.
Money
and power, I think.
And they lose it.
Yeah.
And then they just become another face in either crowd.
And also, aside from the money part, it's like the negotiation that has to go to get what you want to go through. And so there's some things that because I'm on this side, and if I need so many votes on that side, what do I have to sacrifice? And now it becomes okay, if you do my thing, then I'll support your thing, and then I'll owe you one.
My back.
And next thing you know, you have bills or you have legislations or you have these things that go through that are not they're not the same idea as the inception of the idea.
Yes. Yeah.
They're not as pure.
Man, I 100% agree. That's I was gonna say on both of those points. When somebody they may have that fire, I'm gonna go in here and change, especially when we're younger. We always, and when you get in there, you have to give and take, and so it may diminish your view. Like, okay, dang, I didn't know it was gonna be this hard. I didn't know this, and then on top of that, I got bills to pay. So now, I just gave this part away, but these people want, so I think that it gets diluted. What they're trying to get diluted. Now that's still no excuse for doing what's right for the people, but I do believe that there's a lot of things that they didn't realize or put into it, and then when they got in there, they have to kind of look at it different. You know what I mean? Not to make no excuses for them, but so.
Well, I think their definition of who the people are changes.
Oh,
That's a good one.
Because once you get into politics, you were used to being around regular people, but then once you get, say, like on the national level in Washington D.C., and you're only around other politicians, like, I think that it starts getting skewed. And now you're hanging out with super wealthy people that are going to support you, and then they're leaning on you to do certain things and all of that stuff. The definition of who the people are gets changed, and how many, Republican or Democrat, but how many politicians say, I intentionally want to hear from someone who's not my constituents? You don't see that. They have constituent rallies where I'm going to hear from those who already support me. So then what happens is their idea of the people is this big echo chamber of this is what I believe, and then, we believe it too, so everybody believes it, right? Well, no, everybody there at that moment believes it, or everybody in that conversation believes that, but that doesn't necessarily represent all people, right? And, there's so many things, and like on the topic of us being a Christian nation, man, I know we've... So
let's throw these papers away.
Yeah. We don't need these. But one of the things that frustrated me on that was that when you look at America, and I'm going to take a view, like remember when, like we had the 9/11 attacks, and there was a lot of discussion about Islam and things like that, and one of the things that we kept seeing was they were saying America is Christian, so they hate both equally, in a lot of ways, right? And people were saying, well, you can't equate the two and all that, but that's what we've done. We've tried to make and say, well, America is Christian, but then we're the number one producer of so many evils in the world, right? And yet we want to stand back and say, no, we're a Christian nation. And the reality is a nation can't be Christian. You can declare an official religion. You can do all that. The only way that a nation is Christian is if all the people are Christian within it, and we just don't have that, and we'll never have that. And really, I don't know if we would ever want to. If you had a whole nation that was all Christians, one, you would still have issues, and then two, how do you ever reach anybody else? But that whole topic has got me. There's several things that relate to that just frustrate me because
we'll do an episode just on that.
Just for me. I'm just going to do that because I'm telling you. Because then
right,
what?
Though.
And I think that's somewhat what's happening right now is now there's kind of a strong arm effort to apply certain Christian principles to our nation that I think is going to have a really, really negative backlash in about 4 to 10 years. And I think because never was the church supposed to be forceful in making people do stuff. I mean, it's a difference. Like some people would say, like, oh, well, Jesus talked about in the early church, that they sold their goods and they gave to everybody, and they're like, well, that's basically socialism and communism. Well, there's a distinct difference between Christian generosity and government forcefully making you give up your goods, right? But yeah, there's all of that stuff, that it gets frustrating because sometimes we miss the forest for the trees. We get so locked in on small subjects. We try to make everything a black and white issue when there's a lot really grayscale all throughout some of these things. Like for instance, you get on some of the big topics like abortion or something like that, and you've got, okay, yeah, I'm against abortion. I'm pro-life, but I'm also very compassionate to what drives a person to want to or to feel like they need to have that, and to not have a compassionate heart towards that person is also unchristian, right? And so there's just some of these things that And then, like I said, once you can dehumanize and demonize somebody, now you can justify hate, and that's where things get messed up.
And one of the things when you dehumanize somebody, then the focus of your conversation is not even the topic anymore.
Yeah.
It's just making you look bad. And because you're bad, I'm associate the things that you do with being bad, right? And so, and that's frustrating as well, because like I said, my social services are important to me. You know, things that I grew up, and I'm the man that I am today because of social services. I graduated college because I had Pell Grants, because we were poor. We had a HUD home. That's how we moved from the East Austin to the north side of Austin. You know, we've had, you know, food stamps. We did those things, and I know that when you do things the right way and you use that as a crutch, if you will, and not a cane and not a crutch, if you will, and I'm progressively growing to get off of it, that it has a propensity, you know, to change your life, you know, and that there are people out here that use them the right way. But to strip it down and not think about the after effect of what happens with all of these people who are depending on these social services, that, you know, if you strip down Medicaid, my 82-year-old grandmother, her life has changed drastically, you know, because that's the majority of her health care. You know what I'm saying? Like, thinking about it it's very important. You know, and so for me, it's like, when I look at it, you say you look through your lenses. Mine is, the lens I look at is, that hits home to me, is whatsoever you do unto the least of these, you do unto me. And so when I look at politics, I think it's selfish to look at where I am on the spectrum and not consider that as an American, there's a whole gamut, and how does the party or how does this policy impact the whole gamut? Because like you said, the people change. When I get up to Washington and I'm in Congress and I'm going to dinners and they're $20,000 a plate, I'm the people, but I don't got $20,000 to get into the room to have conversations with people who make dinners. Right? And so it's like, when we look at the people that we support, and if you are supposed to be a representative of the people, it's important for me to look at your history and see, are you doing things that is not best for the haves, but you also do things that are good for the have-nots.
You know, man, you hit a point, brother. We got invited to, now, as far as abortion is concerned, I was selfish, and I've tricked 2 girls into having an abortion when I was younger. That's what my thing was. So now that I'm, I'm against it, but I still have to be compassionate to why people do it. And we got invited. We were doing a campaign. I got invited to Right for Life. Ever heard of that? It's like one of the biggest anti-abortion, pro-life seminars, whatever conference in America, and they were right downtown. We got invited there, and man, it was just like, there was so many big politicians there. They were just like worshiping these guys, right? And the politicians wanted it because this is a big donor, all right? And now think about this. I was sitting there with my wife, and I was thinking, like, babe, the people that are making all these laws for abortion won't have nothing in common with most of the people who go and get abortion. They're not in this room. And what you just said, because I was thinking, like, they gatekeep because it's $800 a plate. It's $800 a plate to get in here right now. I call her smookas. And I was just, man, it's just like the Holy Spirit just like, what the heck are you doing? You know what I mean? And it's like, but it was a very scary scene, because everybody was just hooping and hollering, because it's like what you said. It was a think tank. Everybody in there had money in common. You know, talking about the babies, man, you're not going down there and talking about why these people, why these ladies have abortion. You're not trying to raise the kid. You know, you're not even trying to know them, because you're they're not here, so they're out of mind, so we can just do whatever we want to them. Matter of fact, most of them can't even get in here. You know, and it was a very, very eye-opening experience for me. And me and my smookas left and went for a day. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what am I doing? Let me get out of here, man. And that was a real big turning point on kind of like in my life, as far as like God's just opening up, like, you can't be all in with None of these people. You got to be all in with me. You got to be all in with God, because these people will lead you wrong, man. So that's crazy you said that. I was in that exact experience, and none of those people even had in common with the people they're making laws for. So you're out of touch with the same people that those laws are going to affect. And that was a huge problem with me. So that hit home when you brought that up, man.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, because like the big thing that gets me in thinking about national politics is, we talked about it the other day, is that Congress, everybody, they create separate rules for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And they vote on their own pay.
Yes.
Like they,
That's crazy.
so there's definitely things that I think we ought to have term limits on. We ought to have everything should have term limits.
Everything, man. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think Simon Sinek said, charity is not charity if you're the benefactor of it.
Right.
Right? I might be off on a little bit of his quote, but it's like, am I really doing something for the good of the people when I am the main benefactor of the very thing that I'm doing?
Right.
And I think some of us get caught. I know with me, I've gotten caught up in it before when I've had, a little bit of power, and the little bit of power I had, I could, make something easier for myself, but like I said at the beginning, healthcare, when you look at the people that govern us, they have top-notch healthcare on our dime.
Right. Yeah, I was about to say, they don't even pay for it.
They don't pay for it.
Yeah.
It's on our dime.
Yeah.
But when we talk about healthcare or better education for the masses, when the data shows that, a healthy working class is best, they take off less, they're at work, they're not in the hospitals, it's better for our economy. Education, it's when people are educated, they less crime, less everything, it's better. But you get all that for free, but the people, for me, who would benefit, that we have to struggle and fight for it. And so it's those things like that. Like, I think we talk about this, when I said the spectrum, I think you get stuck in your spectrum, and you don't think, how is this going to impact those that are a little further along than me? Because the abortion thing, the people that are making the abortion laws, abortion is not an option, because if I can afford an $800 plate, and that's disposable income to me.
Yes.
That's disposable income to me. A person that is contemplating an abortion, $800 is a life-changing, month-changing type money.
Yeah.
So I can't risk that. But because I'm stuck in my spectrum, I don't have the empathy or compassion with people on either side, and that's very important that we keep that.
Yeah.
Man, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And I've been convicted right now, like we always do. Every time we have one of these podcasts, we get convicted. Because that's so true. We get stuck in our lives and what we're doing, and we have very little time or any empathy or energy to get outside of somebody else. But that's so important. That's why something like this is important, because you bring different views that we want. That I didn't think about healthcare like that. You know what I'm saying? When you're talking about your wife, that's your woman. That's I'm big on marriage since I got married, but that's your since I got married. But you know what I mean? So you that's your woman, man. And so that you're gonna be focused on that. Versus me, I didn't see that, but now that brings a whole different aspect to the way I'm gonna think, man. So I love these type of conversations, man. It's just hate that we can't do it as much because we let these type of things get in our way when we can learn so much from each other.
Yeah, I think we tend to get so emotional, especially about something you believe, you really support and you're really for. We get so emotional, and then when the emotions take over, we don't listen. We don't, we start listening to respond rather than listening to understand. We go through these things, and one of the things I've tried to intentionally do for the last, 15 years or so has been, because right now there's of course the you cancel people and all that stuff. So if somebody doesn't agree, well, I'm just going to delete you off my
Cancel
Facebook
culture.
or social media or whatever. but I intentionally have both Democratic and Republican friends, and it's kind of like getting to. It's like I guess you could imagine like there's this room, and let's just imagine that on the other side of that wall there's another room this size. This room it's all Republican, that side it's all Democrat. It's kind of like getting to be able to put your ear in here like, oh yeah, and then you kind of get to listen over here, oh yeah. And then, like I said, there's a lot of times. So when Jesus said that he makes it to rain on the just and the unjust alike, the issue is that there's some things we all experience. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that often bond us, that sometimes it's suffering, sometimes it's struggling, sometimes it's good things, but that's that stuff that bonds us. That's the bridge for the gospel into every area of life, right? And then Jesus in John 1:14 said that 14 got stretched out there. John 1:14 is he says that the word came in full of grace and truth. Mm-hmm. And I almost see that the two main political parties, they kind of try to lock in on those. I feel like Republicans want to be like the party of truth, right? And then I feel like the Democrats oftentimes want to be the party of grace. But we got to be full of grace and truth. If we're going to be Christ-like, we got to be like Christ. And if Christ was full of grace and truth, then we ought to be full of grace and truth. And we can't ignore the other part of it. Like, we can't be so for truth that we have no grace. Mm-hmm. And we can't be so much for grace that there's no truth, because, but there's all of this stuff, man, and we get lost in it. And I think when we get lost in it, like I said, the definition of the people change, our views, we're not looking through the same lens anymore, all of those things. So I don't know. Yeah, we kind of went away from our question.
No, I think this is good.
I blame it on Mark.
It's a good conversation.
I think, and I think we should have this again.
I think so. I think we could probably have some really good conversations over like specific topics. I don't know. Maybe specific topics, be able to like just sit down and be able to say like, here's the way I see it, and just learn from each other.
Yeah. And then maybe we could do that. Maybe set up a live too. I know we're still in the podcast, but you know what I'm saying. So we'll definitely have to come back to this. Let's answer one more question about what political party. No, sorry. What are some things that you think that can unite us?
I don't know, man. I don't know because it's so rough. It's so rough right now, and I think it's rough because we're in such a volatile space, and I think before we can be united, some of the venom and the sting of each side has to come down. I think that, you know what the Bible says, a house divided will not stand. I think there are very two distinct visions. And where there's two visions, there's division. There's not a unified direction in which either of these representatives want us to come. So for me, what could bring us together is being able to come to the table and coming up with a vision of a country that both sides can agree on. And for me, my biggest frustration with our country, and this is not a partisan thing, this is a American thing, is that we always in other people's stuff. And I really think that if we focus on issues at home first, and we could all agree that because like what Rick said, both sides are talking about the same thing. Both sides say they want a great economy. We just have a different way of going about it. Both sides want a resolution to homelessness. There is just a different way to come about that they're going about it. So they all have these talking points about how to fix it, but no one is coming together to say, okay, what can we do to really fix it? That's without fighting or walking out or protesting or yelling, that someone's an idiot or a liar or what have you. And when you do those things, while it feels good in the moment, there's huge collateral damage that comes from even, what happened, from yesterday, with Trump and his whole deal, because I'm one to say it, I am not a fan of that man. And like I said before, because of my values, I don't feel like he upholds it. But at the same time, when you go back to Biden's administration, and I think her name was Marjorie something or other, and she continued to yell out, and then now Trump gets in the office. It started back then, and you passed the lick back then, and now the Democrats, what do they get the opportunity to do?
Yeah.
I get to pass my lick back. So now not only are we going to protest, we're not just going to yell, we're going to have signs, we're going to walk out. And that's how I view it. But before anything, as I ramble on, I think we have to come together and have a united vision for what we want our country to be, and then work a plan to get there that is a collective, united front.
Yeah.
That's a lot to think about, dude. That's good.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy.
It does. It starts with this. It starts with a conversation and learning about other people, where they at, who they are, and where they want to go. And everybody's busy in their own corner. They don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's one of the things we've talked about before is that real change doesn't happen from the White House down. It happens from our house up, and our house out. So the things that, we have these conversations in our closest relationships, so we can kind of be able to have these conversations greater. Because right now, I think, to get kind of philosophical, but I think what we're seeing in America right now is the first fruits of what happens when you truly embrace postmodernism as a nation. And what I mean by that is that now we see the idea of saying everybody's got their own truth. Now we see all those truths clashing. And now it's a battle to say my truth is truer than your truth. My truth is now in power, so I'm going to get to do this. And we're seeing this tit for tat that's going back. That's the reason I think that some of the things that are happening right now, where Trump's going full steam ahead, I'm not sure. I think it's short-sighted in that, okay, then what happens if the next election we have a Democrat president? Is it going to be now full steam the other way?
And it's almost, we're not a Christian nation. They've removed God from our nation, and now everybody has their own little God. And that's why they're passionate about it, whether it's politics or finances or government or sexual identity, whatever their God is, that's what they're going to stand on and plant their flag in, almost as passionately as if it was Christ or whatever. And it's difficult. It's hard to get back there. It's hard to get back to the table and realize that we're all different.
Yeah, especially with both sides. Anytime you actually try to have a bipartisan conversation, it's considered that any compromise is a loss. Or any compromise is you going all the way over there, and that's where I think that I'm not sure if we can. I'm not sure that
it feels like a lost cause many times.
I think though we start with what we said, a goal.
Yeah.
But you're right. The more we actually think about it and soak on it, it's like, can it happen? But I think we at least start with that goal. Like, okay, this is what we both want, and then our compromises depend on that goal. Like, okay, will that get us closer? No. Will that get us closer? And I'm just pointing stuff out. I don't have the answers either.
I think that, in the way I feel about it, like the goal, I felt in these last few administrations, I felt like, in hindsight, when you sit back and look, the goal was just to beat the other party.
Yes.
Yeah.
The goal was just like to win. If we win, but like, what's after that? You won, but what's after that? And even though it's just like, there's not going to be a Republican heaven. There's not going to be a Democratic heaven. We're going to be together. The same difference. The thing is the same, even with this political atmosphere is that after we vote, regardless of who wins, we still have to live together.
Yes,
to do it.
We still have to be together. So regardless of who wins and who loses, us being together and my quality of life and the quality of life of my children and those who are around me are important. And so just to win for me is not enough. You know, and I'm at the point now that winning is not enough. I need some impactful things to happen, not just in my life, but in the lives of people that I love and I care about, and to actually move ourselves forward. You know, as a country, we always proclaim that we are the greatest country on earth, and these last several years, I don't believe that we're that great. It doesn't look like, you know, we're that great. I love my country. I love us, and I think we have great and amazing potential. But I think that, you know, just winning and beating the other party, or just being just wanting to be in power and getting there is not enough for us to be what we could be.
Yeah, and I think that the government being I don't know, almost like a succubus on its own population, I think is part of that thing too, because it's getting in power to do what, right? Like when people get in power, it's like, and it stops being about doing what the people who voted for you to be there voted for you to do. It's now about, now that I'm in power, now I've got to do everything to stay in power.
Yes, 100%.
Right, and it's to what end, you know? And that's the, I mean, there's lots of problems within our government and stuff, but the thing is like I just don't understand how some of the people that weren't millionaires when they started their political process,
don't even get me started.
all of a sudden are multimillionaires, you know, all that type of stuff. But I think that there has to be somebody. So we talk about in the Bible within marriages, there's a crazy cycle that happens, right? Within husbands, with husbands and wives, that the Bible says the husband is to love his wife, the wife is to respect her husband, right? In Ephesians 5. So what happens when the husband feels disrespected? He acts unlovingly towards his wife. The wife doesn't feel loved, so she acts disrespectfully towards her husband. And it's this downward spiral. The only way you fix the crazy cycle, somebody has to be willing to do what they're supposed to do regardless of what the others did, right? So a husband who feels disrespected still acts lovingly. Then what happens is the wife feels loved and can act respectfully. And then the husband feels respected and he acts. And I think the same thing has to happen on anything. Like, we have to go back to this common decency of saying, we're going to love and respect everyone no matter what. Like, and Christians ought to be the ones that lead the charge on this, because every person we look at is created in the image of God. No matter what their religious beliefs are, no matter what their backgrounds, no matter what race, no matter what ethnicity, no matter what language they speak, no matter what nationality, no matter any of that stuff, every person is created in the image of God. That means that we ought to love and respect every person. They don't have to earn our respect. We give it automatically.
I talk to our kids about that, man. About respect is given. You know, especially when they get in a little tussle and they get a little fight, or they get into it with anybody. I say, you know, I ask them, what do you believe about respect? Is it earned or given? And I said, man, if you're not going to respect me, I'm not going to respect you back. You got to earn my respect. And I said, who puts the price tag on it?
Right.
Like, who decides at what level or what thing I have to do to earn your respect? And what if I'm not willing to do that? Then we just live in a respectless place, right? It's like respect is given, like, because of who you are, because of who God made you, now trust is earned. Trust is earned. If I call you to pick me up and you don't never show up, I can't trust you. Trust is earned by what you do. But respect has to be given. Like, there has to be some common decency. There has to be, me and my wife, when we did it on accident, but we did it. There was we came up with these rules of engagement. Like as we come together, when we argue or we get into contentious situations, there's certain things that we're just not going to do, so that the conversation that we have is fruitful. That you hear me, I hear you, and I'm just now, instead of us arguing, it's not an argument, it's a conversation. I'm not arguing my point. And I think that sometimes we miss that, and we get, like you said, I get into power, and I have these ideologies and thought processes that I'm going to push, and I'm going to change the world, and then I get addicted to that power, and so now my whole job is now to remain in power because I like where I'm at. And what ends up happening is now we have a group of people who are supposed to be a representative of the people, but really they're only representing power, and they're doing what they can do so they can keep their comfort level and not make change for the people that voted for them.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big problem, a big challenge. So, man, I think we could go on for hours and hours and hours. So
we're gonna have to have another episode on this.
Good stuff.
Y'all want to leave them with a word for the battlefield? Each one of us usually gives something we want to leave
something
with the audience. And I guess I can go first.
Sure.
I want to lead with, I don't like everything about my smookas, my wife, and I love her to death.
That's it. That's all he's gonna say.
Yeah.
No.
So it gets me in trouble. I don't like everything about my wife, so there's no way I'm going to like everything about anybody else. And so I try to keep that in mind when I'm talking to people, when I'm dealing with different people, and try to focus on, like we said earlier, God created them. So I'm supposed to be obedient to God first. So I want to leave with you. Whenever you're dealing with other people, He created that person. Remember that.
Yeah.
So I've been studying in Ephesians, and in Ephesians it tells us that there's some certain things that we can get united behind. There is one God. There is one Christ. There's one Spirit. There's one baptism. And even though that's something we can unite behind, God gave many to be different things. He gave some to be teachers, and some to be prophets, and some to be this, and some to be that. And his model for that unity is a marriage between a husband and a wife. And the way they get through all of that is love and respect. So that's what I want to leave with you: love and respect other people, and talk.
Yeah. Good.
I'm just going to go back to something easy, man. Treat people right. That is a banner for our church. That is a banner for how I live. It's a banner on my day-to-day interactions, and it's probably one of the hardest things that I had to do, because in life you want to treat people how you feel or how they made you feel. You want to, if they pass a lick, you want to pass a lick back. But very similar to what Pastor Rick said, is that sooner or later someone has to be the bigger person and stop passing licks so we can get an understanding. So my goal and my word for you is to challenge you as you go out day to day and you're treating people. Everybody has value, whether you like them or not. If they're a believer, God said they too were made in His image, not just you. They too were made in His image. And so because they were made in His image, I want to challenge you to treat them right and do what's right by people, regardless of how you feel or what you think, but what you think God will be glorified in how you treat your brother and sister in Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think my word is to remind us, because I know a lot of you are believers, is that we are forbidden to hate people. And so we are to love even those that we would consider our enemies. Even those that persecute us, he said, we're supposed to pray for them. And so if you view the other party or someone who differs in your political views as the enemy, or you feel like they're persecuted, you're still supposed to love them. You're still supposed to pray for them. And realize that most of the things that you hear that are talking points on 24-hour news stations and all of that stuff, those are not real people they're talking about. They're a conglomeration, a straw man that's built up that maybe is an exception to the case. But here's my challenge for you. actually sit down and talk to someone that you know disagrees with your political view. Actually sit down and talk with them. And before you talk about political stuff, talk about their family. Ask them about what are the things that they worry about. And what you're going to find is there's going to be a lot of similarities between you and them. And you're supposed to love them. You're supposed to love every person. And we won't be able to solve these big political problems until we can find some way to unite to face them together. And so that's my word. Love folks and have some real conversations. Be kind, Doesn't cost anything.
Okay, man. This has been a great podcast. Thanks for coming on. We're gonna do this again. I don't think this is the end.
We need to have some more
on different topics too. But at least a part 2 on this. But thank you once again for being a part of the Battlefield podcast. You can check us out at battlefield.co. Like us across all our channels at the Battlefield Podcast. And until next time, God loves you, and we love you. See ya.
See you later.